in which we can see the whole of Times Square, all the way from 42nd Street up to 47th Street on the left. This is one of the greatest celebrations that we have ever seen from the marquee of the Hotel Astor here in New York City. People, I should estimate at least 350,000 or more, it's pretty hard to estimate at this point, are cheering and screaming, making noise with sound makers, throwing confetti and bits of paper, streamers, and all sorts of things that they can find to celebrate this greatest of all victories, the surrender of the Japanese. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, it's a terrific sight as we stand here and see an ocean of people. The white hats of sailors standing out predominantly in the sea of heads that we can see both to our right and to our left. And around the Times building, which of course has that terrific electric sign that flashed the news just a moment ago, I don't believe you could throw in a toothpick in down there between those people. They're packed in so tightly. The newsmen, the cameramen from all of the camera services, both still and motion picture men, are here photographing this gigantic scene as we look upon it from the balcony of the Hotel Astor here in New York City. They're grinding their cameras and people are waving flags. The vendors of noisemakers and flags have done a land office business all day long. We were over here early this morning, and at that point, people were celebrating then. But this celebration right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the biggest that we have ever seen from our vantage point right here. Down comes a cloud of papers from the rooftops of the buildings around Times Square, and the pavements below us are so covered with paper that it's difficult to see the pavement itself at places. People are steaming and teaming and pushing and shoving and going in one direction or another all around the square right now, and we think that this is really a sight. People are really genuinely happy down there. Many servicemen are among the people who are celebrating. The carnival spirit prevails all up and down Times Square. We're just told that Wednesday and Thursday have been declared illegal federal holidays, VJ days. Maybe you can hear the people screaming down there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a listen. And that shows just a small sample of what it was a moment ago when the Times electric sign flashed the news that everyone has been waiting for many long years. People were sitting on the curbs all afternoon on newspapers. People were perched on the fence along the middle of Times Square and perched just everywhere you could imagine, waiting for the news to come through. And now it has come through, and all of those persons who were engaged in business on any of the side streets and those who were on the adjoining avenues have all flocked to Times Square, which today is truly the meeting point of the world insofar as the East is concerned. We assume that these celebrations are being held all over this vast country of ours and in the Allied Nations. But just as a sample of what's happening right now, ladies and gentlemen, I can look to my left all the way up to 50th Street, and all I can see is humanity. 50th Street is perhaps 5 blocks beyond Times Square district. All we can see is a sea of humanity. People in every color costume, people from all of the nations of the world have assembled here today to celebrate this truly great victory over the Japanese. Police are everywhere, but they're not stopping the celebration by any manner of means. The reserves were called out late this afternoon, and they've taken posts all around Times Square, too. I don't think I've ever seen so many people in my life in one place. This afternoon, we saw many very funny things happen. People who were really in the carnival spirit of the moment, enjoying themselves to the fullest extent, throwing confetti on one another, throwing newspapers, anything that they could throw which wouldn't hurt someone else, laughing and talking, screaming and yelling. We could hear various ejaculations of, well, now my boy can come home, and now this one can come home, and that one can come home. Believe me, it's a great thing. We see a huge electric sign up the street, which just flashed a big sign, the Japs have surrendered. And believe me, that's getting electric signs on timely and in a hurry from this vantage point in Times Square. That's all for now. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Back in the WOR newsroom, we want to clarify one thing. Tomorrow and Thursday are not federal holidays, legal holidays, but they have been proclaimed 2 days of VJ observance by President Truman for the federal employees of the country. And that, of course, will mean that Wednesday and Thursday will be officially VJ days for the entire nation. We're waiting for a word to take you to Washington in just a moment. And while we are waiting to do so, here is Van Deventer with... Wait a minute, I think we're going to make a switch in just 1 second. One moment, please. Fellow typewriters are banging out the details right in front of us here, but we want to try to get them for you direct from Washington in just a moment. Take you now to Washington.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Fulton Lewis, Jr. speaking from the Mutual Studios across the street from the White House in Washington, D.C., where President Truman has just made the very dramatic announcement that the unconditional surrender of Japan finally has been received officially here by the United States government. This has been a very momentous and hectic day. Beginning at about 2 o'clock this morning, as you know, we began to rise in hopes that when the Tokyo radio announced that the answer to the American, British, Chinese, and Russian government's last ultimatum would be forthcoming sometime during the day. We thought we had it for a while early this morning, only to find out that what was coming over the ether from Tokyo to Bern, Switzerland, and which was thought to be the Japanese message, was something else entirely. And it was not until 2 o'clock this afternoon that renewed hopes began to come through. Then, throughout the afternoon, it was a play-by-play account of the most dramatic possible build-up. First, the news that the real Japanese message had been received in Bern, Switzerland. Then the fact that it had been turned over to the American minister there in Bern, Switzerland. Then the fact that the American minister had transmitted it by cable to Washington. Then the fact that the Swiss minister here in Washington was on his way to the State Department and had arrived there. Then Burns, at about 6:20 tonight, that Mr. Jimmy Burns, the Secretary of State, had moved over to the White House to make his formal report to the President. Then about 7:15, we were informed that at 7 o'clock on the dot, the President would hold a press conference for an official announcement. There were perhaps 125 newsmen there, jammed into the President's office. A very, very tense surrounding. Mr. Krug of the War Production Board was there. The President's military and naval aides. Secretary of State Hull was supposed to be there, but didn't get there until the ceremonies were partially over, although Mr. Secretary of State Jimmy Burns was present. I shall read you the exact statement of the President, his exact words, because I think they can express a little better than I could secondhand the drama of what he said. He said, "I received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification. Arrangements now are being made for the formal signing of surrender terms at the earliest possible moment. General Douglas MacArthur has been appointed the Supreme Allied Commander to receive the Japanese surrender. Great Britain, Russia, and China will be represented by high-ranking officers. Meantime, the Allied armed forces have been ordered to suspend offensive action. The proclamation of VJ Day must wait upon the formal signing of the surrender terms by Japan. The following is the Japanese government's message accepting our terms." And I'm quoting the actual message from Japan now. "With reference to the Japanese government's note of August the 10th regarding their acceptance of the provisions of the Potsdam Declaration and the reply of the governments of the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, and China, sent by American Secretary of State Burns under date of August the 11th, the Japanese government have the honor to communicate to the governments of the four powers as follows. Quote, 1. His Majesty the Emperor has issued an imperial rescript regarding Japan's acceptance of the provisions of the Potsdam Declaration. 2. His Majesty the Emperor is prepared to authorize and ensure the signature by his government and the Imperial General Headquarters of the necessary terms for carrying out the provisions of the Potsdam Declaration. His Majesty is also prepared to issue his commands to all the military, naval, and air authorities of Japan and all forces under their control wherever located to cease active operations, to surrender arms, and to issue such other orders as may be required by the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces for the execution of the above-mentioned terms." That is the end of the note. The moment that was over, the newsmen raced out of the office to flash the good news to the world. In the meantime, almost magically, the city of Washington, which has been a dead city all throughout this whole affair, has gone wild. Outside in Pennsylvania Avenue, here in front of the White House, there is bedlam supreme. So at last, ladies and gentlemen, after all these almost 5 years and these last 5 days of very hectic waiting, the war is over. The Japanese who started at Pearl Harbor at last have theirs. Sic semper tyrannis. We now return you to Times Square in New York.
This is Bob Dixon of the Mutual staff in New York speaking to you from the marquee of the Hotel Astor at Times Square, the meeting spot of the world in New York City. I hope I can give you an adequate picture of what is before us right here, but believe me, the celebration that is going on dwarfs any New Year's Eve celebration that we have ever seen from this vantage point. All the way from 55th Street, which is approximately 4 blocks beyond Times Square, all the way from 42nd Street and down is just a mass of humanity. Surging, teeming, screaming, joyous humanity. We've never seen anything like it in our career broadcasting from the Astor Marquee, believe me. The white hats of the sailors, the white uniforms, the civilian garb, the military garb of all the United Nations is out here, and they all feel the same way. They're just as happy as it's possible to be, believe me. We've watched this celebration draw to a terrific climax all during the day, and we've never seen anything like it. I keep repeating that, but believe me, it really is a sight as we look down here on this ocean of people in front of us. From Times Square, below Times Square, all the way up to 55th Street, which is a phenomenal mass meeting, according to our remembrance, in here in Times Square. The news cameramen of all of the news services are here, of course. Television is being recorded here, and still pictures are being taken by the various news services, too. Flash bulbs are going off all around us here. People are screaming. The vendors of noisemakers have done a terrific business all day long, all building up to the climax when it was announced by the electric sign on the Times building to our right at the corner of 42nd Street and Times Square that President Truman had officially told the people of the United States and the world that the Japs had surrendered. Even one great electric sign to our left has suddenly transformed itself into a pictorial display of the surrender of the Japanese, and that's quick work.
Check out my other videos and subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video.